Um, welcome to another exciting Q&A, questions and answers. I hope you guys brought your questions. We brought some answers, and I should just check. Pantera, are you recording? Okay, cool. Thank you, dear. And it's like 1 a.m. for Pantera, so she'll probably hit record and then go to sleep. So let's hope the region doesn't crash. So I have a little agenda thing here. And actually, I think it'll be a relatively short Q&A. We don't have really any new news or excitement. I don't know why you're all here, even. But we'll start with the the basics. Ed, did you want to talk about something about a bell?
Me talk? No, I wanted you to talk about the bell.
I can't talk about the bell.
You can or you can't?
Well, I suppose I could, but I don't have the slurl for the bell. So, since Ed is going to grift me into talking about the bell, we have a bell. It's not a cat bell. It's not a cow bell. It's a support bell, and it's work in progress, actually. Mr. Keisha and Chuck at North Spring are working on improving it, but it does have some functionality already. And for those of you who, and we know how easy it is to get into our support group to ask a question. Let's face it, it works every time when you try to get into the support group, and it works. It just works, right? Just like all the group chat stuff always works. But in the very rare occasion that you're not able to open the group chat for our support, and the very, very unusual occasion that you might have some chat lag that is bugging you and you can't deal with it, we have a support bell located directly below us on the floor of the region. Ed, do you have a link or a landmark or a slurl or something?
That one you mean?
Oh, that's the one. So in the last Q&A, we mentioned that we were opening up the region a little bit more. And we actually have now support people. Usually there's somebody here in the region, at least one person, sometimes more, down at the center of the region on the floor, where all the nice little pets and things are running around. And there's some little picnic tables and places to sit and chat. And if you have some questions, you can, and you can't get into the group, teleport into the region and come say hi. And if there is nobody there, there's a little bell on the table. It's a little service bell. And if you click that bell, it rings a HUD that the support people have worn. And it notifies them that somebody is here and they're looking for help. And assuming that the support people who never have anything to do anyways, I mean, they do nothing. I don't even know why they're on the team. In the off chance that they might feel like doing some help, they'll get a little message in their nearby chat that tells them that somebody wants help, and they'll give you help. Did I describe that well? Did I put support in a good light?
Yeah, you did actually. You only missed one thing, and that is the hover text on it will tell you if there are no team members available to help out, as well as the number of team members that are available.
And that's the bell is being improved with some. Oh, there's something else to put on the agenda. You see. Sorry, I'm making this stuff up as I go, folks. So yeah, the bell is still work in progress and being improved quite a bit, including some communication to the server and various things. So there's that. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up. I'm telling you. The other thing was, Letty, you had something you wanted to share.
I do. Let me grab my link here. So this is hot off the press. new blog post, which relates to stuff we talked about at a previous Q&A. I kind of ran it by you all or whoever was there at the time, if it would be of interest, and some people said it was, so I have finally finished it. And it's about the chat options, the user interface chat options in the viewer. They are very complex, especially if you're not intimately familiar with them, and can confuse people, especially with the terminology. And I think everybody on support has at some point gotten asked the question, how can I get chat back the way it was? And as I'm sure most of you can imagine, that question means absolutely nothing if we have no idea what your chat used to look like and what it looks like now. But that, of course, is all that the person can say, because they have no idea how to describe what's going on. So this explains the difference between the conversations window, the chat console, and chat toasts, which are all three separate things, and how you can get your chat looking the way that it does in the pictures. And there are a bunch of pictures. There are no fewer than 12 images in there that address a number of settings. Certainly not all the chat settings, because that would be ridiculous. And you probably don't need an image to explain what some of them do. But there's enough in there that should help people get to the more, the less intuitive, the less obvious of the settings. So please take a look at it, and especially if you ever hear anybody complaining about their chat not looking like how it used to be, send them straight there. I'm hoping that the support people are also going to be using it to point people to, if they need folks to explain better what it is that they're looking at and how it is that they want it to get changed, what it is that they want it to look like. So that's it, just an announcement of our new, this new blog post that should be helpful for folks.
Thank you, Letta. And I might point out that actually Letta does some other great posts, which we wish more people would read. And you can find them just by going to the root of that blog and searching through her previous posts. All right, so that's all we had to talk about today. Thank you all for coming. And have a good... Oh, are we not done? Oh, you guys wanted to know about other stuff. Okay. Leap Motion. You guys heard about Leap Motion? It's this really neat little controller thingy that you set it down on your desk. If you don't know what it is, just Google Leap Motion and you'll come across it. And so some of you might be aware, actually, I think we mentioned at the last Q&A that we were going to be working on that. So we had assigned, thank you, Arissa. Arisia, I always pronounce your name wrong.
Arisia. Did I get it right? Did I get it right?
Arisia?
Yes! Nobody says her name right. I was determined to say her name right. Arisia.
She's been on the team for how many years? And we've never pronounced her name right.
Almost three, right?
I've pronounced it right
bad.
Twice. But I always forget.
I always say Arissa. Arisia. Okay, Arisia. Thank you, Arisia. Now I know. Okay, so Leap Motion. We had assigned Cinder to be in charge of that. I've got a little bit of bad news. So I'll sort of segue into the bad news and then segue back into Leap Motion. Most of you know Cinder. She is a great developer of ours. She's one of our main Mac developers. Fixed a lot of stuff. Came up with a lot of stuff. Dedicated a lot of work to the viewer, to the project, to Second Life. And I'm sad to say that Cinder has departed from Second Life and from the team, and she won't be back. And oh, hi, sitting on my lap. I see you standing there. That's all right. Someone throw a pie. Anyway, Cinder has left. And I'm sure we've all reached a point or another in our second lives where we get a little bit tired, burnt out in Second Life, and I think more or less that's where Cinder's at. And so she's no longer with us. Unfortunately, that also means that I'm sort of left with Leap Motion and trying to work out how we're going to manage that. And I'll talk about that in a second. It also leaves us in a sticky situation in regard to Mac. And I'm going to get back to the whole Mac thing as well. So, oh, right. Thank you, Tank. Yeah, that's a point. If you guys are interested, Leap will, from time to time, go on sale, and you can get it on sale. In OpenSim, yeah, it's also left me in a bit. If those of you who use OpenSim, Cinder was in charge of OpenSim development. So we're also a little bit short on that expertise as well right now. So there's a few things that are going to suffer from her absence. But we will persevere. So Leap Motion. How many of you are familiar with Control-Alt Studio Viewer? And David Rowe, who develops that viewer. I'm sure many of you have. If you're not familiar, he's on the third-party viewer directory. What he does, his viewer is based off Firestorm. What he has done to date so far is he's done Oculus Rift integration into his viewer. I don't think it's complete. Nothing is ever finished. But there's Oculus Rift. He's done Kinects as well into his viewer. We've been in touch with him. I've been talking to him quite a bit, and we've decided to kind of partner up in an effort to speed up the integration of Leap Motion. So where that is now, since things have changed, Z-Re is working on camera manipulation, and camera, I think, is a pretty big one, especially for machinima makers, to be able to manipulate your camera without having to use your mouse. And some of you can't afford Space Navigator. And so we're kind of hoping that we'll be able to provide some integration with camera movement. Nikki has done a little bit of work on object manipulation for building in Second Life. Cinder had just started work on avatar movement for walking and flying. Now, David Rowe, you know what? I should have asked him if he'd come up on stage with us tonight. Never occurred to me. Anyway, so he's basically going to take over the majority of that work. We're going to be giving him commit access to our repository. That's probably news to everybody here, including our devs, because I don't think I mentioned it until just now. Surprise! I think I forgot to mention that. Oh, by the way, and the reason for that is because since he is based off of Firestorm, and since we have developers on this team working on Leap into our repo, our repository, and he's going to be doing work on his repository, it really kind of makes sense if he can commit that back to us, and we can, it just helps us with merging and keeping up with each other. The work is not going to be available to you guys until it's a little bit more presentable. At the moment, the Leap controller is I don't think anybody who's used it, this won't come as a surprise to you. It's lacking in accuracy. The Leap Motion people assure me they are working on an update which will improve its accuracy, which is the smoothness and its ability to recognize your hand and where your hand is and your fingers and all that kind of stuff. That they've got an update in the works that will improve things a lot. So, but in our discussions, we've all come to the agreement that even if we manage to get, and by we I mean Control Studio and Firestorm, even if we manage to get integration finished, we're not going to release it until that update is available, and then we can polish it up, because if we release something that really isn't that usable to you guys, it's just going to turn everybody off from ever wanting to use it. And So as far as timeline on that, can't give you one, even if I had to, because they don't have a timeline on their update, and it's not going out until at least until we've had that update in our hands for a little while. So, but Leap Motion is continuing, and we're excited to be working with David Rowe from Control Alt Studio to make that happen. And he is like a pro at this kind of stuff. Like I say, he's already done Oculus Rift and all these other things, so he's ideal for it. Next on the agenda, Tank, did you have something to add? I see you're typing. Oh yeah, it'll be out soon. Yeah, right. When it's ready. I think, honestly, there's some challenges there. I think that in order for Leap to succeed, it has to be easier. Let's say avatar movement, for example. It has to be easier to move your avatar with the Leap controller than it is to use your arrow keys. Or at least it has to have some advantages, like being able to walk slower. Wouldn't that be cool? And like be able to move at different speeds. And David tells me that he has some a way that he's making that actually happen. That to do it properly would need server support, and Linden Lab, I'm sure, will do that at some point. The main idea right now is just that we get the main integration, and then we can get it to Linden Lab, and then they'll start doing all the really cool, fancy stuff that requires server-side support. Yeah, so basically it's going to need to be more fun to use and more accurate and easier to use than our current tools that we have now. Space Navigator is pretty good. It's going to be tough to beat, but we'll see what we can do. Okay, the next subject was download server. We have a release coming out soon, and I'll get back to that in a minute. That's right, Tank. Object manipulation will need some server stuff. Well, we can do, a certain degree of it. Nikki has already managed to be able to select prims and unselect prims, and so far, and she's only just done a little bit of work, more or less playing with it. And the way she's doing it is, her idea is to have a rendered representation of your hand on the screen, and you basically get to pinch an object with your fingers and turn it and move it and spread your fingers to make it bigger and smaller, that kind of thing. Pretty cool idea. Okay, so download server. So some of you know we host or have historically hosted our downloads with Google. And Google is fantastic because when we upload our stuff, it goes to the quote-unquote cloud. And so, you guys we can have 1 billion people downloading, a release at the same time. And really, it has very little effect on download speeds for each other. Unfortunately, Google canceled that. So as of January 14th, Google will no longer host new uploads. And at least not without paying them, probably a lot of money. And I spent a lot of time looking at alternatives for hosting these files. So we average on a release, when we put out a release, we average about 5,000 downloads an hour, I think it was, for the first 24 hours or so. And when you consider that each download, the Mac binary is like 90 megabytes, the Linux binary is like close to that as well. And then the Windows is like 30 or 40. That's a lot of bandwidth. That's a lot of data being transferred. So I've looked at a whole bunch of different alternative hosting things, and there's lots of different things out there, but they all have caveats. Like they have a limit to how much people can download. Dropbox has a throttle. And also a limit. Throttles, most of them all have throttles. Some of them had ads, which I don't like because an ad will have you get a download now button, and people will click that thinking they're going to get the download. You know what I mean? It's just it's not cool to do that. So I ended up just deciding to spend more money, and we have a dedicated server now for just our downloads. And although it's dedicated, it is a used server. It's not like super uber fast like the Linux servers or Google servers. And although we've done some mild testing on load testing the server, we don't actually know how well it's going to handle this next release. So it could be a disaster. So basically the whole point of this topic is you've been warned. When we would do the release and everybody goes to download it, and if suddenly nobody can download it, that means that we blew up the server. So, and at which time we'll have to start, looking for other options.
Everybody with an A, download now. Everybody whose name starts with a B, wait for the next hour.
We could try doing that. We could end up doing that. The worst case scenario is that you'll be able to get the download started and then it'll drop halfway through. And, well, actually, that's not the worst. The worst case is that the server blows up and catches fire and then we get, sued for fire department stuff. But it's hosted in Germany. It's actually the same company that we have our other server for our web host, our Jira, Wiki, all our other stuff. But there's a possibility that people might get corrupt downloads because they got dropped halfway through the download or something. It could be a disaster when we release. We don't actually know. So basically just be warned if, you try to download it and nothing is working. And you see like 1,000 other people in the group chats that you happen to be in, and they're all complaining that it's not working. Maybe you could just help us by informing them that, our download server is on fire, and they might need to wait a little bit.
And you can also tell them that Jess is sitting at home raging, pulling her hair out, trying to figure out a way.
Oh, you can be assured that if it goes up in flames, I'm going to be running around in circles like a chicken with the head cut off, because I don't even have a backup plan.
No, she'll be too angry to cry. The problem with torrents and things like that, or a Dropbox tree, folks, is you're getting your release from some other place, and it could have been messed with. Most people don't check the checksums. Most of you don't, do you? How many of you here have checked the checksums on your downloads? So, yeah, exactly.
Marishka, that's a really cool name. That's Russian, isn't it? Is that Russian? I bet you a lot of people don't have any idea what that means. And not Marishka, the MD5. We should make a wiki page on that.
There is.
Hungarian, cool.
There's a wiki page on how to check if you're down, you're safe.
So torrents. As far as mirrors go, I don't have any other servers I can mirror to. Torrents is something that's come up many times. I have some developers on the team and some people who are in favor of torrents. I'm not in favor of torrents. It is still an option. I won't remove it from being a possibility. But the thing with torrents is that, first of all, you have to have a torrent downloading program like BitLord or whatever. Second of all, torrents, just the word comes with negative connotations because torrents, illegal downloads and stuff. And I just don't like the negative connotation that it has. It kind of has a stigma. But even if we look past that, there's also the chance that people will, rather than... So here's what happens when we do a release. We ask everybody, please send people to the blog post, because there's important information on that blog post. I can assure you there's important information on the blog post about that release. And we want people to read the blog post. But what people do anyways is they just get the link to the download and then they post it in all their groups, and people just click the download and they don't ever make it to the website to read the important information. And then what ends up happening is then they all come swarming into our support group asking because of this and that, when it's all answered in the blog post. That's why we say, please just send people to the front page of the site, not just the download. But I'll tell you what will happen with torrents, or what I will predict could happen with torrents. First of all, we're the biggest viewer, makes us a target, especially of griefers. And if there's torrents out there, you can be sure that griefers will link to torrents in these groups and say, this is the new release, go download it. And people will click it, and they'll go download it, and they'll go install it, not even thinking that maybe that's not actually the official torrent from us. And then people get infected, and then they come back to us. So torrents is just, I'm paranoid. And torrents just makes me nervous. It makes me really nervous.
Rodney, you're the exception here. Sorry, when we put out a release, and you can watch the group, a release goes out, people are in 10 minutes later having downloaded it, installed it.
I have looked at it, seen it.
And they're having a problem that was mentioned in the blog post.
Oh, well, I have been wrong before. I'm usually wrong, in fact. I'm just saying that now. SourceForge we've looked at. They have throttles. I've spent like 2 months checking them all out, looking at every different possible option we could think of. And it ended up we're just paying an extra $30 a month for a download server. Well, that's the problem is the ones that don't have caveats with them, like throttles and all these things, cost way more money than we can afford. $30 a month is pretty much all we can afford. And then, the amount of money we have to spend on KDU and all these other things. I can't remember what the throttle was.
Cam?
But it's the more people on it, the more it throttles. So if you get like 1,000 people downloading at once or whatever, it's going to be really slow. No, KDU is a yearly fee, Skills, and it's $1,000 a year for us. I shouldn't have said that. I didn't mean to say that out loud. Erase that. You didn't hear that. So yeah, that's what we spend to bring you fast graphics. So anyways, that's the download stuff. We're going to move on. We're already half an hour in. Voice issues. Linen Lab, some of you were at the third-party viewer meeting on Friday, which was yesterday. And Vivox has some new shiny logging stuff, apparently, and they're detecting bugs. And imagine that. And they're actually looking into fixing bugs. So you can expect bug fixes in Vivox in the coming months, weeks even, I'm told. Apparently we'll be getting a new Vivox file, and that's the slvoice.exe. There's actually bugs in Vivox, imagine. But unfortunately, we're not going to get it in time for this release. At least not very likely. And if we do get it in time for the release, it won't be in time for us to do QA on it. So it won't go out in this release. But Linen Lab will, I'm sure, release it within the next month or so. Oz said that it could be just a matter of weeks before we get a new voice binary. So anyways, expect some exciting changes coming there. Sorry about that big loud noise. Next. Who wants to know about fitted mesh? These guys they don't want to know about fitted mesh. No, nobody's really cares about that.
I wouldn't bother talking about fitted mesh. Let's go back to the voice issue. We'll talk more about the voice issue.
Yeah, the voice issue is more interesting. In fact, I think like the whole download server was so far the most interesting. Well, HTTP, we got to get back to that as well, which I've got next on my list. Okay. So fitted mesh, yes, it's going to be in this release. But I want to talk a little bit about fitted mesh. I remember when Sculpts came out. And sculpts looked really cool. This is going back a little ways. I can't believe how long I'm still in Second Life. What the heck is wrong with me? And when sculpts came out, they were like really cool. But sometimes, they looked good for some people and they didn't for other people. And then, other things came along. Then mesh came along, and let's use. We'll stick with sculpts for now as an example. I can't tell you how many times we've had content creators screaming at us because they've made a product that looks fine on the Linden viewer or on some other viewer. Their customers that use that viewer, this content looks great for them, but when they use Firestorm or Phoenix, actually this happened more back with Phoenix, when they use Phoenix, it looked different. Why does it look different? And I'll tell you, most of the time, it's because the content creator didn't RTFM. Who knows what that means? Read the freaking manual. There's the right way to make stuff, and there's the bad way to make stuff. And namely, I'm just going to use LOD as an example of this. For those of you that don't know, LOD is a preference in every viewer, and it stands for level of detail. If you make a sphere, just like a regular prim sphere, and you have your LOD turned down to, say, 1 or something, it's not going to look like a perfectly round sphere. It's going to have kind of vortices in it. It sort of like peaks on it. If you turn your LOD up really high, it's going to look really nice and round and smooth and beautiful and everything. But that only changes what it looks like to you. Now, what content creators were doing, and I just mean this loosely, I don't mean all content creators, but some content creators were doing is they had, because the world looks better with higher LOD, and they have a good video card so they can crank that up, and what they would do is they would make content, and they would check it for how good it looks on their viewer with their LOD turned up really, really high. And then they would put it out for sale. But what happens is that because they never checked it on a lower LOD, which most people are probably running, it actually looks like crap for them. Default LOD is different from viewer to viewer. For us, and it differs depending on what graphics card you have and what level of preference you have in the graphics panel. And the region just crashed.
I was going to say that.
Populated. Pantera, are you rolling again? Okay, we'll pick up where we left off. So we were talking about LOD. Jessica's rant, take 2. So then we get, so content creators are creating, for example, and I am just using LOD as an example, but for example, the default LOD level for their viewer that they happen to be on, is lower. And if that content creator were to make that content look good on a low graphics setting, it's going to look really good on a high graphics setting. So the moral to the story is there's a right way to make content and there's a wrong way to make content. And with mesh, there's really a right way to make mesh content and a wrong way to make mesh content. And many of you have come across, I'm sure by now, mesh that doesn't load or it doesn't look right or is broken or for one reason or another, it's just horrible. Not every case, but quite often it's because the person who made that content didn't RTFM. So, and by the way, Mr. thank you for re-mentioning that. There is a link there by Mr. for understanding LOD, in case anybody's wondering or curious about LOD. There is instructions on how to make fitted mesh. There's the link to how to make fitted mesh. If you are a content creator and you want to make fitted mesh, please RTFM, because if fitted mesh looks like crap, then let's face it, you want your content to look right. Don't cut corners. Don't try to, just read the manual and try to follow it and make your content so that fitted mesh looks really good, because it's got great potential. And thank you to Linen Lab, and in fact, originally the method being used was actually sort of a hack used by some content creators like Redgrave, who I had bought jeans from, and then was told that my jeans would probably get broken because Linen Lab wasn't going to support it. But then they started looking at how it was actually done, and they said, hey, that's not a bad idea. And so then Linen Lab worked with content creators to make this, basically it's a mesh deformer. That could be Billy. In fact, there's a lot of caveats to making mesh, and if you're a content creator, you really owe it to yourself as your reputation, and you owe it to Second Life, because you're putting content out there to learn about it. Take the time to learn about it. It would be nice to have fitted mesh working properly. It would be nice to have mesh everywhere looking properly and looking good. And that requires content creators not being lazy. So that's my rant. Yeah, it's not easy. I can't say from experience because it's actually over my head and something I'm not even going to try to attempt to do. But I know it's complicated. Yeah, there will be a learning curve. And the problem with learning curves is that content creator people will, as they learn, and they'll make stuff, and then they'll possibly give it out or sell it. And it won't be very good. Or it may not be very good. They'll give it away. Once it's in second, it's like the internet. Once you post a naked picture of yourself on the internet, it's always forever going to be on the internet. And so keep in mind, if you post something or upload something and put it on sale for the marketplace, in a year from now, you're going to be embarrassed that you made that thing and that your name is on it. So think about that before you upload it, because it will still be around in a year or 3 years, and people will see it and they'll see your name and they'll think, oh, this person can't. That's gross. That's like system hair.
Gibson, I'm all for that, doing that. Convince everybody else.
Actually, Tank, where are we on that? If I recall, the Linen viewer is higher, isn't it? We decided to be lower.
Theirs is lower.
Is theirs lower? But it's not by much, is it?
Well, you only have a range of 4, so there's not exactly number-wise.
With Phoenix, we because Phoenix merged from Emerald, and if I remember correctly, Phoenix had a really high LOD by default, which was just wrong. Oh, so it's not by much. And it does depend on the slider that you have in your preferences.
Yeah, the level of detail default changes based on what level you have the graphics set at. So
there's not one default. There may be as many as 7 as, the Tank would probably know exactly how many, but there may be as many as 7 for the 7 points on the slider.
So, looking at, it just because you've never changed LOD, so you figure that's got to be the default. It also depends on where you are on the slider. It depends on what GPU card you have, what graphics card you're running. There's a lot of factors involved. But if you're a content creator, lower it down to like 1.5, 1.5 or something. Make it look good on an LOD of 1.5, and it's going to look good on anything higher than that.
But the argument against defaulting lower than we currently do for everybody would be that we're going to end up with people not used to having their LOD lower and not realizing why they're seeing sculpts and other things look poor, and contacting us about it. And that is what happens. Aside from the fact that most folks are, those who do know that it's LOD are going to get annoyed about having to turn their LOD back up every time they change their graphics setting. So there's, unless we're seeing a lot of people having performance issues at the LODs that it's set at currently, I wouldn't necessarily be in favor of doing that. I think it is better to educate creators to turn it down on their own because as Jessica says, it's their responsibility to make sculpts look good for people at any setting.
I've actually got one other setting that I'd like to see our defaults lower at long before we lower the LOD, and that's our max avatars.
I'd agree with that.
That sounds like another Q&A. Okay, so that's that. If you're a content creator, yes, be excited. Fitted Mesh is going to be released in Firestorm very soon. It'll be out as well in, I know Catsnip, they're working on getting it out as soon as possible. I believe Singularity already has it out. So it's going to be grid wide very quickly. So, next. To HTTP or not to HTTP? That is the question. So LinenLab, HTTP is something Monty Linden's been working on, which is, how can I put it in layman terms, is basically network stuff. So the communications between your router, the viewer to your computer, to the router, to all the different hops and skips and jumps, to the Linden servers, and then from the Linden servers and hops and skips and jumps all the way back to your computer. There's a lot of data that gets transferred back and forth all the time, and especially in a region when you've got a region full of people like we are right now, the region can only transfer so much so quickly. Ed, you are completely hiding behind the couch. I see you there.
Cool.
So LinenLab is, Monty was almost offended when he looked into the network problems and discovered that, there's some really bad code there. And he has spent quite a bit of time fixing it. And Monty is a really good Linden. He's really good at what he does, and I have a lot of faith in Monty. Now, we've been... So the thing is, LinenLab hasn't released HTTP yet. We expect they're going to release it next week. He is a really nice Linden. He's got a great voice, too. Where was I? Anyway. So we're basically trying to decide at the moment whether or not we're going to release HTTP. Obviously, we don't want to release something that LinenLab hasn't released yet, but we need to have time to do quality testing on that as well. So what Tank did is Tank merged in HTTP onto his private repository, and we're trying to get that out to our QA team now. And see how that goes. If LinenLab releases HTTP on Tuesday, as we expect they will, then chances are we're going to release with HTTP. What does that mean for you? HTTP should make things res a little bit quicker, like mesh, avatar textures. What else, Tank? Actually, Tank, talk to us about HTTP.
There's not really a whole lot in HTTP. It's just mainly for improving the speed and reliability of downloading textures and the mesh information, like the physics detail and all that stuff. And also it impacts the upload of mesh.
It could be significant.
Fail as much, so you're not wasting as much money. But the main thing that it tries to do is alleviate the number of concurrent connections that you're making to the Linden Labs, which will really help on low-end routers that sometimes when they TP into a region, their entire network dies because their router gets overwhelmed by the number of connections. And with this new capability, it'll reuse the connections that it already has, and it lowers the number from 32 down to 8. which sounds like it would decrease your speed, but since you're reusing the connection, you're not having to wait for the connection between you and Second Life to reinitiate every time a new texture discard level is initiated. Which, by the way, is about 5 times per texture. So it's a big improvement there.
Potentially huge. So it has the potential to have a lot of value, and so I really would like to get it released. And in fact, I I actually asked Tank to merge it into a repository yesterday, so that we can get it into QA, and Serial, who is one of our senior developers, quite effectively put me in my place and pointed out that Linens haven't released it yet, and so we should be waiting. And anyway, I don't like it when she's right, because it usually goes against what I want, but she wins again. And so basically, whether or not we release with HTTP is sort of hanging on what Linen Lab releases next. If Linen Lab releases HTTP next on Tuesday, then we will release with HTTP, providing we find no major bugs with it, which I don't expect we will. If Linen Lab releases Sunshine next week instead, is the region dead again?
Region's dead. Yep. It's gone.
We'll see you guys back in a few minutes. This is why we can't have nice things.
People crashing these sims.
Yeah, I was going to just give a little note in chat or in text that there was also 32 connections for mesh download, and it's now down to 8, so that'll help.
Improves things.
Yeah, not clogging up.
Sounds like it will.
Especially when
I haven't got a ding yet, but
case where you have 60 people all downloading 32 connections. Yeah, that's a lot of connections on the simulator.
Yeah.
So this will help with that.
Maybe the regions won't crash like this one is doing.
It takes about 2 minutes for the client to time out.
Yeah. Well, we can hear each other. I expect some people have already dinged out. Yeah, the region's going down.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
voice is still connected,
like a minute and a half now.
We're able to. We'll be talking about ETA next, actually.
ETA, is that Extra Trippy Adventures? Shug, you forgot the trademark symbol after the soon, okay? Get it right, man.
Yeah, I guess I should
this year
make it define, because I mentioned liquid mesh. I don't want people to think liquid mesh is fitted mesh. The method that was used to make liquid mesh, which is, I don't know who invented that term, but the method is similar to the method used for making fitted mesh. Basically, liquid mesh, what's the word?
Liquid mesh was
Linen Lab inspired.
It was the inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah.
Linden Lab basically took liquid mesh and improved on it. It's basically sort of what happened.
Oh, was it Red Poly? I thought it was Linden Lab. Not Linden Lab, but okay, Anara has some good info, and I will make sure to point this out. Red Poly Inventor came up with the original idea. He first put it to Prep Linden in the Mesh closed beta in November 2011. Really, that far back? See, I did not know that. Oh, I see. So then, I see. So Red Poly Inventor deserves that credit. Anara is like a little bit of a walking encyclopedia too, just so you guys know. Pantera, you recording again? Okay, I think we'll pick back up. So we left off at HTTP or not to HTTP. Basically, it's going to be based on whether or not Linden Lab releases HTTP on Tuesday. If they release Sunshine before that, then we have to deal with merging Sunshine, and that's going to take us a lot more time. So that's where we are with HTTP. So next on the list, and I'll try to move through this quickly now because before the next crash. The typical reply is always, when it's ready. And a lesson I've learned a few times now doing this is to never make a definitive statement about anything ever. So I'm not going to make a definitive statement. I'm going to say that we're aiming for around the 9th of March, which is in just over 2 weeks. 3 weeks. 3 weeks from now. And in fact, we were actually aiming for the end of the month, but because of the HTTP delay, we're sort of holding off for a little bit. And so there's a lot of chat going on in local here, and I'm trying to keep track of this while I'm talking. Right, so folks want to know about... Okay, let's talk a little bit about what's coming in the release. First of all, we'll talk about the Linden Lab shiny stuff that you're going to get, which is fitted mesh, obviously. Talked about that. HTTP, maybe. Request teleport feature. Jonathan Yap wrote in a feature that is called Request Teleport. I should say that Linden Lab really wanted us to replace our right-click TP2 with the Request Teleport, and we were not in favor of that. What Request Teleport 2 does is basically if I'm up here and you're down on the floor and you want to teleport up to me, right now in Firestorm you right-click on my name and you can click Teleport 2 and poof, you're here. What Jonathan Yap did for Linden Lab is that you right-click and you request a teleport, which would then, I would get a notification saying, so-and-so wants to teleport to you, would you like to allow it? And I could click yes, and then they'll teleport to me. I know you guys well enough to know that if we remove Teleport 2, there would be a flaming revolution going on in Second Life. So we've not removed it. Instead, what we've done is if you are in a region where you can't make that teleport because there's landing points in that region, like, if you go to a region, sometimes you can't teleport around because they've got this one place you can teleport to, then it will default to making a request to teleport to that person. Okay? Does that make sense? But if you're in a region like this one where you can teleport anywhere you want, you're going to have the option to request a teleport or just teleport to. I don't think Linden Lab's happy about that. I think they kind of want people to have to request a teleport, and I can see where they're coming from. But I know for myself, I will stop going anywhere in Second Life if I lose my ability to teleport around places. I'll just not go anywhere. And yes, we use that. We pointed that out.
It's something I'd like to say about that.
Thank you, Anara.
Jess, if you don't mind, there's something I'd like to say about that. People say, oh, this feature is used for griefing, that feature is used for griefing, okay? And it's the same thing as, are we going to start banning cars because people start running people over? You get where I'm going with that, right? It's the people, folks. It's the people that we got to deal with.
Yeah, so I mean, the fact is you can turn a pencil into a lethal weapon. It doesn't mean you should ban pencils. So, anyway, what else? Facebook share features. Linden Lab has some new features coming that you can. Now I'm completely oblivious to this. I don't know how it works. I've not tried it. I personally have no interest in linking my Facebook with Second Life, but for those of you who do, Firestorm will have that feature, which allows you to link to your Facebook. Improve region restart messages and an optional screen check. Okay, so another thing Jonathan Yap did, how many of you have had a region restart on you and you missed the notification because you've got chiclets or toast hidden or for whatever reason, very annoying? So Jonathan decided that he was going to put an end to that, and he has, because now when you get a region restart message, the whole bloody Second Life shakes right off your monitor. You cannot miss it. He's got a screen shake. It causes the screen to shake, not physically, but your camera in world shakes around, makes it look like your screen is shaking. You get a really loud, obnoxious sound, and you get this great big ass notification in the center of your screen that tells you the region is restarting. We thought that the shaking is maybe a little bit much, and so we've actually made that optional. I think by default it's enabled though. Well, it's not really an epilepsy thing, but just the whole thing shakes. When I restarted the region here a couple hours ago, I saw it and I couldn't miss it. Believe me, you won't miss it. It's there. So
was that you that restarted it, Jess? I was.
Yes, it was.
I was here on my own. I left it up until 2 seconds before restart to teleport.
Oh no! Well, I saw you down there, so I put it on 5 minutes. I gave it 5 minutes to restart. I figured for sure you're going to see the big earthquakey, shaky thing.
Oh yeah, I was watching the seconds count down and enjoying the earthquakes.
Okay, so I'm going to move on. I asked Whirly if she could put together just a short, small list of just some of the highlights of the things that, is coming. And I specifically said, Whirly, please, no, you don't have to do like all this research or anything like that. Just a quick little list. And, well, you guys, if you don't know Whirly by now, Whirly doesn't know how to do anything halfway or even a quarter of the way. Whirly can't do anything a little bit. So basically it's a bloody changelog for the release almost. Anyway, some of the highlights I'm going to try to pick from the list. And she sent me a document, like a lot of stuff. 64-bit Windows will be in release form. 64-bit Linux will be available in beta form. And I understand there are still some issues with the 64-bit Linux. I think it was related to media. Mister, is that right? Was it media? Or search, web search? And notification. So, I'm expecting if you're a Linux user, you're used to bugs. Oh gosh, I'm going to get killed for saying that. But yeah, it'll go out as a beta because there are some issues with it. We may be able to get some of them fixed before then, but anyway, so the Linux will be beta. We will not have a Mac 64-bit. Cinder was in charge of that. Cinder did quite a bit of work towards that, which we can use. Cinder is gone now, and I have nobody at the moment taking over that. I'm going to get with Tanya and Nikki at some point after this release to see if we can continue working towards Mac 64-bit. But for the time being and for the early foreseeable future, don't keep bugging us for a 64-bit Mac. I've got no idea if we can provide that to you. It may have to wait until Linden Lab does it. So, the 64-bit is very stable. It's very good for most people. We've got a new merge for RLVA 1.4.9. For those of you who know what that means, Fmod X is updated. KDU, where we've got a new version of KDU. I don't think you're going to notice any difference between the Fmod and the KDU changes. Animation Explorer will be in this release. Those of you might remember it from Phoenix. That was ZRE put that in. Cinder completely redid contact sets before she was gone. And so contact sets is different now. And it is missing some stuff that was available in the previous contact sets. And I'll say that the contact sets that's going out in this release is a work in progress. So don't come saying, oh, it's this and it's missing that and that. We know it's missing stuff. It's not finished yet.
Can I say something about the contact sets while you're on the topic? For anybody that uses the contact sets now, you're going to be very confused when you first see it. Come out to the class, pick up the class notes that will be available, or come out to the contact sets class. It's actually a lot more intuitive on the new contact sets, and I really haven't seen anything that you can't do that you could do with the old ones. It's just a little more awkward in a couple cases. Yes, your current sets will still work, Trouble.
Yeah, you won't lose your sets that you've already created. And then Katie, go ahead.
The one thing that you will notice, unless it, the one thing that you are going to notice if you are already a contact sets user is that you're not going to be able to see the colors of the sets in the list of people. That, as far as I can tell, that is the main thing that you're going to notice is lacking. Other than that, the functionality is there, and the colors themselves can be assigned and will work. You're just not going to open up the window to a big screen of colored stripes anymore.
Katie pointed out, just getting back to Windows 64-bit, I forgot to mention, the installer for the 64-bit Windows is really slow. We're not quite sure why, and we don't have the time to try to figure out why, but if you're installing the Windows 64-bit, expect it's going to take you 10 minutes. It took me 16 minutes one time to install it, so it's really, 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 really slow. But it's still working. Don't cancel it. Just be patient. Go have a coffee. Have some cookies and a muffin. Yeah, we have a lot of files that get installed. One of the things on our to-do list that's been on our to-do list for a long time was to remove the rim lights and remove the skin files and offer them as separate downloads so that the viewer binary is smaller in size and people can update it or can download it quicker. But we've just never gotten around to that. We'll get to it someday. So Leap Motion support is in progress. Don't expect a time on that. What else we got? Exporter now works with material textures. So if you're exporting an object that has materials textures on it, they'll get exported as well. That was from Cinder. Area search improvements. Price, prim count, land impact columns have been added. Beacons are now resizable. Zoom cam feature has been added, so you can actually double click it on the list and it'll zoom your camera to it, providing it's within your draw distance. And that's from Cron Stardust. Group members list can now be exported to CSV, so you can export your group list. That's pretty big. That was by Cinder. Shape XML import has been added, so you can import XML shapes for your avatar. I believe that's what it is. Option to block all teleport requests and teleport offers by Pantera. Huge anti-spam fixes and improvements from Enserial. Photo tools, and if you're a photographer, I'm just gonna give you a quick list of JIRAs here, and in your spare time you can go to have a look and get an idea of what's in photo tools. Lots of exciting stuff there. Customizable minimap background transparency. So we pulled in a bunch of stuff from Exodus. And this is some of the stuff from Exodus, and we've had a lot of people asking for it. Exodus hasn't been getting developed much lately, and in fact, I don't think they even support. Are they even supporting materials? I'm not even sure. I don't know. But anyway, we've had a lot of people coming over from Exodus and asking for us to bring in some of these features. So customized minimap, background transparency, added option to remove single avatar mark from minimap, configurable draw pick radius on the minimap feature, added marking of multiple avatars in minimap at once, added avatar distance and name plus target trackers in Mouselook, originally implemented by Ayamo from Exodus. And Serial, I believe, did that merge, or that pulled that and made some of our own changes as well to that. Can add multiple avatars to contact sets from minimap selection, so you can actually, from the minimap, add people to your contact sets. Added option to sort friend list in people panel by username. This is a small list. Anyway, there's a lot more stuff. As far as fixes go, bug fixes, the slurl problem, you know, when you're on a web page and you click a slurl and you expect it to launch the viewer and it doesn't, that's been fixed. Favorites not showing up on the login page for resident accounts with resident as the last name. That's been fixed. Client tags for OpenSIM has been fixed. Render resolution divisor fixed. I have no idea what that means. I won't even pretend that I know. Avatar no longer gets thrown underground when editing shape or clothing. That's that hover bug. I know that affects a lot of people. Floaters can no longer be moved totally underneath the bottom toolbar buttons and lost. How many of you have lost a floater window and then had to like kind of almost reset all your settings just to get it back? You know, sometimes you slide a chat window off the page or it's just disappeared and you can't get it back. Copy and wear now replaces outfit instead of adding from inventory. Avatar name loading reliability improvements. Material sync feature. This is a problem a lot of people who were making or editing materials with were having problems with the sync feature. It now works properly when materials textures have a negative offset and rotation. That's been fixed. What else? Oh, geez. There's so many things here. Inventory filter on recent tab does not stick through relog. That's been fixed. Objects attached with LL attached avatar temp disappear after exiting edit appearance mode. That's been fixed. Removing any worn item from your avatar results and all temp attachments being taken off. That's been fixed. Lots of fixes. Lots of stuff coming. And Cyril, if you guys, you know, just because it should be said, it just should be pointed out that if you go there, let me shout that. That's our repository, and there you can see everything that we're working on. And every time we make some change, it goes there. It's live. We're completely transparent with our code. You can see everything we're doing as we do it. But the funny thing you might notice if you look down that list and go to the next page, the next page, the next page, and Cyril has been on fire. Like, you can't even believe how much work Cereal's been doing. It's ridiculous. So, thank you, Cereal. Recognition for that, seriously. What else? You know what? I think that's about it. I mean, it's not it. There's all kinds of other stuff coming too, but I'm not just. You're gonna have to wait for the release. So we're aiming for the 9th. It could be a week after that. It could be a week before that. It could be next year. But we're hoping for around the 9th for the release. Fitted mesh, maybe HTTP. You guys will know if we're going to have HTTP if on Tuesday Linen Lab releases HTTP. If they release something else, then it won't be. Questions? Can we go over the copy and wear versus add to outfit thing again? I can, but I probably wouldn't be able to help you much on it. I don't actually know. This is a list Rory gave me.
Mariska, yes. Definitely.
Group band, we have no news yet on that. Just that it's still being worked on and is coming.
The latest news we have on the group bands is that Baker's very close to having something that'll pass their QA, and then he'll be running some tests on Aditi, which I've already signed up for.
I should mention what I'm sort of... So LinenLab, as some of you know, LinenLab has a whole bunch of projects that are all they're all queuing up to be released one after the other. And to the dismay of our support team, one of the things that I'm hoping we'll be able to do after this release is, so let's say we get this release out, let's say HTTP is in it, then LinenLab releases Sunshine. I would like to then be able to just, let's merge in Sunshine, get that working, and get another release out with Sunshine. Then LinenLab will release something else, let's get that in, merge it, release it. So we may have, in the next coming months, more frequent releases, like really close together. And by close together, I mean like maybe 2 months. I say 2 months because that gives us a month to to merge in and code, and gives QA a month to troubleshoot. And then, gives us time to fix bugs that we find. So there's, our regular schedule, which has been unacceptable for most people, including ourselves, has been every 4 months we've had a release. I'd like to do 3 months, but in the next couple months, we'll probably be doing one every 2 months or so, depending on how our merges go with LinenLab and how testing goes and things like that.
It'll also give Jess time to calm down the support team members.
Yeah, and recruit new, because we'll be losing support people. They'll be jumping off of bridges. I'm not sure, Mirshka. Certainly, if there's a Jira for it, or if you search for Jira, if it's been fixed, it'll be marked resolved in the Jira. And there's my phone.
That's okay. I've been told my supper's ready, Jeff.
I think it means we're coming to a close.
I'm just going to sneak off and grab my supper. I'll be back in a couple minutes.
Hey, Annie. You're just in time for the end. But welcome to here. Oh, yeah, I did say I'd get back to the Apple stuff. Mac stuff. Okay, if you're a Mac user, I'm sorry. Point blank, that's what I have to say about that. Not sorry that you're using Mac. I'm sorry that all viewers have more or less gone to crap for you if you're on older Mac versions. So with the merge of Cocoa into the Linen repo and then into our repo, Cocoa came with some really nice fixes for things, and also came with a lot of really bad bugs. And I know there's a lot of Mac people who have not been able to use our public beta that went out, the 4.4.2. So you've had to go back to 4.2.1 or 4.4, whatever it was, the one before. Anyway, we don't have any of those fixed. So this release is going to be somewhat bad for you as well. Here's my problem. I don't have Cinder. And even if I did have Cinder, a lot of these bugs are even beyond Cinder's capability to fix. We really need Linden Lab to fix them. We did bring these issues up with Linden Lab yesterday at the third-party viewer meeting, pointed it out to them, and they're going to spend a little bit more time looking into it. But obviously we can't make any promises on their behalf. And so I'm sorry, but if you're not able to use our beta 4.4.2, you're probably going to have the same problems on this release coming. And that's depressing. Right, 4.5.1, sorry. I don't know what percent is on Mac. I'm going to guess 10-15% of users, and of that 10-15%, not all of them have these problems. So it's probably, but the thing is, even 15%, even 10%, even 5% of the amount of users we have is a lot of people. So although 15% may seem like a small percentage of the overall, it's still a heck of a lot of people. So, and I wish I had better news for you guys. You can't use 4.5.1. Yeah, I'm sorry. I really do feel bad for you guys. And some of you may also know fitted mesh is not without problems. If you're on, what is it, Lada 10.6? 10.6 Mac, you'll have stretchy things going on. And 10.7, you'll have massive performance hits with fitted mesh, if I remember correctly. I'm hoping not, Cam. I'm hoping not. So as far as the 10.6, 10.7 problems, I did bring issue to that with Linden Lab. And they're more of the mind of, well, then these people need to upgrade their operating systems. It's free. They can download Maverick for free. But I realize that's not an option for some of you because of hardware problems or for whatever it is. But that's going to be the response for those problems probably by Linden Lab. As far as the Cocoa problems, which is a lot of crashing, there's a lot of crashes. When Willie and I did triaging for this release, we came with so many crash issues. And we can't fix them, it's beyond our capability. So that's about where you guys are. Well, in Gibson, in Linden Lab's defense, while they do have Mac developers are, there's a lot less Mac developers than Windows developers, for example. And the Mac developers that they do have, I believe, are already tasked on other things, like these projects that, all this work that they've got throwing out right now. And so in many ways, they're in the same situation we are in that, they just don't have the people right now to task to fix these bugs. But like I said, so the thing is, obviously Linden Lab wants fitted mesh to get adopted. And if Mac people can't use fitted mesh because of one reason or another, because of Cocoa, that's some pretty good motivation for Linden Lab to get some work done in that regard. So we're kind of hoping that's what's going to happen. You never know. Might help. Don't throw eggs, though. Don't do a Justin Bieber.
Oh, Jess, I can't believe you said his name.
I can't believe I said that.
That's it. I'm going to call Lori, send her over to smack you.
I went there. I've stuck my foot in my mouth several times tonight already. Okay, any other questions?
Am I fired yet?
Not going to happen. there are a lot of Lindens that use Mac, but it doesn't mean they're devs who develop on Mac. But I know that, for example, Soft Linden has if you're on Mac, you probably know about this bug. I did mention Leap Motion, Annie. It'll be in the recording. It's at the beginning. There's the camera bug for Mac. You try to alt cam and your camera goes flying off into space. That's affecting quite a few people, even at Linden Lab. So I would expect that will be fixed soon-ish. As far as the crashing goes, I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah. What Linden Lab need to do is poach somebody from Apple. You know? Get Apple interested in Linden Labs.
The thing is, Linden Lab also has a great connection to their servers. They're the people that'll tell you to bump your bandwidth up to 10,000.
Oh, yeah.
Which, sorry folks, don't try it. Unless you like having problems.
And clearing cache doesn't actually fix everything. Despite what Torley says, or said.
Yeah. And I can't believe the Lindens are still advising us to turn their bandwidth all the way up when they know for a fact that their servers cap it. And there's a cap in the viewer as well.
Well, actually, with this HTTP work, things might even change in that regard. It's hard to say. I've been running the HTTP since yesterday, and from my own personal experience, right now, things res faster. You guys are all resed in. I have nobody that's not resed in. I have nobody that has invisible bodies or invisible heads. Everybody with mesh is loaded, and loaded really quite quickly for me in a region full of people. So, the HTTP looks really promising.
I can't see anybody.
You can't. Are you on HTTP
camera?
No, I had to de-render everybody. I had to de-render avatars. Otherwise, my ping sim time goes nuts, Jess. Really nuts.
So if HTTP isn't affected by bandwidth, and saying we have HTTP inventory and HTTP textures, and we already know that voice and streaming music aren't included in the bandwidth, so what is there left to be on UDP that could be affected by bandwidth?
I don't know.
Anywho, my dinner's ready, so I gotta go. I'll see you guys later.
Okay, Tank, thanks for coming. Actually, I think, did anybody have any other questions, or did we miss any questions?
Sophie, the maximums, and I want to stress the word maximums we recommend, are 500 for any sort of wireless, 1,000 for any sort of hardwired DSL connection, and anything else, anything faster that's hardwired, a maximum of 1,500. But I do want to stress the word maximums. I suspect chat and object and information and stuff like that, Ants, will come through UDP. Physics is all client side, if you're talking avatar physics trouble.
Are you serious? I said the floor for sale? Really?
Just wasn't lagging at all looking at you, Dakota.
That's why. That's why. Because I could have sworn I had set the box for sale, and then somebody said it wasn't for sale, and I clicked it, and it wasn't anymore. And I was like, I could have sworn I did. Apparently, I was. Yeah, the floor's for sale. Okay, it's not anymore. I got a bridge for sale.
How tall is it?
Oh, geez, I bet you a lot of people bought the floor. Those of you who don't know, there's a prim on the middle of the floor just in front of the stage that has a raise hand animation thing. So that's what we're talking about. And anyway, I'm going to say that we're done the official part of the Q&A. Is that good? Are we good? And we can all stay behind and chit-chat and continue to ask questions, answer questions. But for the sake of the video recording, I think we'll end here.
No, we're not done. You forgot something. You forgot something.
I forget lots of things.
I'll do it for you.
Okay.
No, I already tried that one, Annie. Classes. Folks, come out to our classes, please. I see a lot of people here that have been out to our classes. And I'm pretty sure everyone that's been out to them is going to tell you that they're worth going to. Please, tell your friends. If you don't like them, tell your enemies. Just get people to come out to our classes. Please, please, please. Okay, yes, now I'm done.
Okay, yeah, that was what he said. And so I'd like to thank you all for coming. And Pantera, you can stop recording. We'll continue on though and answer questions.